Hi folks, it's Becky with New Hampshire Audubon. I'm just getting set up here. Howdy, this is Becky with New Hampshire Audubon and I'm just getting set up. I'm checking my phone here, see if I come on board. And I will wait a few minutes as I'm making sure everything is working. But as always, if you can see me and hear me, please post a comment so I know that, and hopefully I'll be able to see the comments this time. All right. That's right. Reminder, it's noontime. All right. Well, hi. Hi, folks. Happy New Year coming up. Tomorrow will be the new year, and I'm doing a Christmas bird count tomorrow. So that will be fun to do in the first of the year and get my year list going. It'll be a good year to do that with COVID-19 and us still being limited in traveling. Being outdoors birding is a great way to enjoy a hobby and enjoy the natural world. So I'm looking forward to it. And I haven't tallied my list from this past year. I'll let you know that next week. But I keep a list each year. And so we'll see how many I had. And then tomorrow I'll start my new list. All right. Well, I think I'm working here. I'm just checking my phone. I'm not quite yet seeing the video up there. I hope you all are seeing me. And if you are, send me a comment. Let me know. Last time I could not see the comments on my phone for some reason. So I'm going to hope that this time it's working. So hold on for a moment or two while I check some things. All right. Well, I should be there and I'm not seeing me. So let me see. Let me try one thing here. Oh, there we go. All right. Just had to change something. And oh, hey, I see a comment that somebody's watching. Great. All right. Thank you. Hi, Blaine, Michelle, and Linda. Hi. Thanks for joining. And again, Happy New Year. It's Becky with New Hampshire Audubon, and happy to answer any questions you might have. Feel free to post any comments, um, or if you have any observations of anything interesting that you've seen, don't hesitate to post that as well. Got a couple of things to chat about. Um, First, I want to follow up on my last Facebook Live. I showed everybody a picture of a track that I was going to have to research. It was a track in the snow, and I wanted to research and make sure I knew what it was. Now I've managed to put the photo someplace other than on my camera. So I'm just going to hold up for you what it actually turned out to be. And let's see, can you see that? It was an opossum, and you could see the trail drag mark in the photo that I held up last time. So that's a dead giveaway to an opossum. So that was in my driveway a couple of weeks ago. They can still be active in the wintertime. We're at the northern edge of their range. And they're omnivores. They'll feed on just about anything. So if you've got any garbage out, whoa, sorry, I thought I had me on silent. Oh my, all right. That was exciting. Sorry about the phone call there. Um, and um, let me just set my silent mode. There we go. All right. I'm out of practice. I haven't seen you in a couple of weeks and I'm out of practice already. Hi, Diana. Hi, Christine. Thanks for watching. So opossums, you could see in your yard. I'm in a relatively urban area and they're still wandering around. I'm sure they're checking out my bird seed that's dropped on the ground, and they're sniffing around for any garbage that might have escaped the pickup. So you could see them, and you could have them wandering through. They're active at night, so you're not likely to see them during the daytime unless it's very, very early in the morning. So that was my opossum. And then last time, because I could not see the comments for whatever reason, I missed a question about snow buntings. So I wanted to follow up and talk about snow buntings because they're really fun birds that you might see in the wintertime. They're most commonly seen on the coast in the winter. These are birds of the high Arctic. So they nest up in the Arctic, the treeless part of the Arctic, but then in the wintertime they move south and they like big open expanses. So salt marshes, sometimes big fields, big cornfields, big hay fields. You could find a flock of them there. Usually they're in groups, but sometimes they can be just two or three birds together. And on the coast, you can see hundreds of them um, in sort of the edges of salt marshes. One of the places they're most commonly seen is Hampton Beach State Park. So if you're at the coast, maybe looking for a snowy owl, um, and you're in Hampton Beach State Park, look for a flock of small birds fluttering around. They fly up and then they come down and feed around on the ground, then they'll flutter up again and come back down. And they may be snow buntings with horned larks. Those two species are oftentimes together, and that's a good place to look for them and see them. And both of them like those big open expanses. Now, the snow buntings they can feed on grasses, grass seeds, any insects that might be mixed in with the grass and the seeds on the ground. That's what they'll be going for. In the summertime, the male has a brilliant, bright white plumage with black wings, but that's not what they look like now. They're sort of white with muted brown on them. And I'm going to try and show you a picture. I see. There we go. Okay, let me just zoom in a little bit and then I'll hold it up so hopefully you can see it. I did a Christmas bird count on Tuesday and I had snow bunting. All right, I'm sorry it's going to be a little blurry there. That's not too bad. You can see the brownish coloration, white underneath, a little pretty brown on the face. That was snow bunting that I had. It was in an open area where there was an old parking lot. The snow had melted, and there's a big old parking lot, and there were three of them that were there feeding, again, feeding on little grass seeds and little grasses, whatever's happens to be there. So keep your eye out for them. They're very fun. And up in the Arctic, they actually will nest sometimes in nest boxes. And when I went to Barrow, Alaska, I saw a youngster at a nest box in the town there, which was very fun. And evidently, they're considered good luck to have them nesting. So, hi to folks. Let me say hi. Hi, Christine, Candy, Pam, Catherine, John. Candy had a question. Do fox hibernate? No, they do not. They are active. And in fact, on Tuesday, when I did the Christmas bird count in the Lakes region, I had a beautiful red fox. It was early morning and it was wandering between a couple of houses, actually, in a housing area where the houses were spaced apart and there were woods in between them. And he took off between the houses and then went around back and into the woods. They might be a little bit less active sometimes, but they are definitely not hibernating. They definitely continue to be active. So you could see them out and about. So thanks for that question. We also have gray foxes in the state. They are very nocturnal and very uncommon to see. I've only seen them a couple of times. Red foxes are much more likely to be active and out in the open during the daytime. Both of them can feed on small mammals. And if you had a garden last summer, at least my garden was inundated with voles and mice. Voles with a V, not moles with an M. I did have moles, but the voles with the V are more problematical. The moles eat insects and worms in the soil, but the voles eat plants and roots. And so voles and mice were pretty much all over my garden. And I'm kind of hoping that the foxes will be active in the garden over the winter and into the spring to maybe make it so I have fewer of the plant eating critters next spring when I start gardening again. All right. Hi, Pam, Catherine, Jan, thanks for joining me. Again, it's Becky with New Hampshire Audubon. If you have a question, don't hesitate to post a comment. If you're watching this later and still have a question, you can always message us on Facebook, or you can email us at birdsetcetera, BIRDSETC, at nhaudubon.org. We have several volunteer naturalists at New Hampshire Audubon that are fortunately working from home and happy to answer questions or to find the answer or get the answer if they don't know. All right, so snow buntings, keep your eye out for them, and sometimes mixed in with them are horned larks. And horned larks have a little bit of a yellow mask on their face, a little bit of black, and little tiny feathers. They're not true horns, they're just little feathers that stick up. And I'm going to see if I can find one for you in the book so you can see. It's very brown on the back, and when you see a flock of them swirling around, their general have a brown pattern on the back, whereas the snow buntings have brown and white patterning. So when you see the flock swirling, look for that, and that will help you tell whether you've got snow buntings or horned larks, or maybe you have both. Let's see, lark here, horned 328. All right, there we go. Let's see if I can hold this up so you can see the horned larks. There are several different races. That's what these pictures are showing. Some of them have more or less yellow on their face. Again, like the snow buntings, they like big open field areas, open marshes. When I did the coastal Christmas bird count, I had a flock of about 30 to 35 in one of the marshes in Rye, in the salt marshes in Rye. So some winter birds to look for. We also had a couple of other questions come in that I wanted to mention or to answer. Several people have been asking about bluebirds lately, that they're seeing them in the wintertime and wondering if that's normal. Well, it never used to be, but they are now here, oftentimes spending the entire winter here. New Hampshire Audubon runs the annual Backyard Winter Bird Survey in the second weekend in February. So save the date, that'll be February 13th and 14th this year. And in that survey, we get numbers for all the different species that people are seeing in their yard. And that includes bluebirds. And we've been able to see the numbers of bluebirds increasing in the wintertime. And why is that happening? Well, there could be several different explanations. One is that the bluebird population at one time was quite low because of pesticide use, particularly DDT. And the population itself has increased with the banning of DDT. Also, people are planting more fruit trees. At least that's what Becky thinks. I don't think we have any actual data to back that up. But I see lots more crabapple trees and bushes around that have berries into the wintertime. And in the winter, bluebirds will feed on those berries. And so that's an additional food source that would be available to them in the wintertime. And then, of course, milder winters may be allowing them to survive when they stay throughout the winter, whereas in the past, if it was colder, more severe winters, they couldn't survive regularly. They may still not survive if we have a long cold spell, particularly with lots of snow, but certainly a lot of them do survive, and more are spending the winter time. The other thing that's happening is that people are putting out food for them, primarily mealworms, although they'll also eat sunflower hearts. So that would be an extra supplemental food source for them that may be helping them in the wintertime. They probably can't survive on that alone, but it would be as a supplemental food source that allows them to survive the winter in better condition. That much like our bird feeders in general, what it does is provide supplemental food that allows birds to be in better condition when they get through the winter, and then they can breed more successfully. So if you have bluebirds around and want to feed them, sunflower hearts and mealworms are two things that you can try putting out. I have not done that. I haven't been in a place that's had bluebirds. I might have them here, but I also have house sparrows, and the house sparrows will eat sunflower hearts and mealworms before any bluebird ever has a chance at it. So I will leave it to others to try putting those out. But I know that some folks who have put out mealworms have been extremely successful at attracting bluebirds to their yards. All right, let me just check and see if I got any other comments or questions. Don't hesitate to post a comment or a question if you have one. So another bird that we've gotten a few questions about is the Carolina Wren. Now, Carolina Wrens never used to be seen in New Hampshire at all at any time of year. They were a more southern species. And if you look at an old bird book that has a distribution map, you will see that it doesn't even show Carolina Wrens as being in New Hampshire. But they are in New Hampshire now. They've extended their range northward. Particularly in the southeastern part of the state and the southern border of the state, they're relatively common. I have two of them at my yard in Concord that countersing back and forth. And when you get up to the White Mountains, they start to get very rare. And north of the White Mountains, they're extremely rare. So they've extended their range north into the southern half of the state, but not yet into really the northern half of the state. They're occasionally there. And we do get sightings of them, but they're not common. Hi, Amy. Hi, Ann. Thanks for joining me. Happy upcoming New Year to everybody. All right, so Caroline wrens, watch out for those, bluebirds. And the other bird we've been getting questions about are barred owls. People have seen barred owls sitting in the daytime, maybe near their feeders. I suspect that was after we got the 2 feet of snow, the big snowstorm. Barred owls feed on primarily small rodents. So those mice and voles that I was talking about invading my garden, that would be great food for a barred owl. And in fact, someone had mentioned that they'd seen a barred owl in the community gardens where my garden plot is. So I suspect that the small rodents were attracting the barred owl. The more snow cover we get, the harder it is for the barred owls to get their prey. And so sometimes what happens is they will perch near bird feeders, not so much for the birds, although they might catch the birds opportunistically. What they're more looking for would be the little rodents that come up and feed on the seed that's fallen down under the feeders. So little mice, little voles that feed on that seed, that's what the barred owl will be watching for. And the heavier the snow cover, particularly if we get snow cover with an icy layer on top that's hard for the barred owls to break through, that's when we're most likely to see them around feeders, and they will sometimes hunt during the daytime. They're most known for hunting at night, but when they're hungry enough, they'll hunt during the daytime as well. So as I mentioned before, I just want to encourage people to save the date. February 13th and 14th is New Hampshire Audubon's annual Backyard Winter Bird Survey. And that's where we get information about the winter populations of our resident birds. and we get information about the visitors that we've got coming from the north. And one of those that's around now, um, and being reported a lot, is the pine grosbeak. I've been talking about it quite a bit in late fall and into the early December because we're getting these birds coming from the north. They feed on fruit. So if you see a crabapple tree that has lots of little fruit on it, look for this little gray bird in it. I think we've had pictures posted on Facebook as well. You can look at pictures, see what they look like. The adult males are bright pink, but the immatures and the females are gray with greenish or rusty red coloration on them. And we're hoping that they'll stay around and that we'll get an idea of where they are in the state in February during the Backyard Winter Bird Survey. All right. So again, it's Becky with New Hampshire Audubon. If you have any questions, don't hesitate to post them. I've been mentioning the Christmas bird count, and sometimes people get mixed up between the Backyard Winter Bird Survey and the Christmas bird count. So I thought I'd try and explain to you not only when they take place, but what the differences are. So the Christmas bird count has been happening since 1900. It's it's a really a fantastic story, and it was started as an alternative to a Christmas Day side hunt where people chose sides and went out and killed as many creatures as they could, birds, mammals, all different kinds. Was no such thing as game species and non-game species at that time. They would just kill whatever they could and then compare how many they each got. And Frank Chapman proposed an alternative to the birding community, which was to go out and count as many birds as you possibly could. And since that time, it has evolved into a tremendously popular bird count in December. The time period when it takes place is December 14th to January 5th, and it takes place in designated count circles. So there's a map of New Hampshire where you can see 15 or 16 different count circles, and each count circle picks its own date. So the Lakes region count that I did was on Tuesday, and the count that's coming up tomorrow for me is in the Nashua Hollis area. And that those circles are divided into like little segments of the pie. And so I have my own section of the circle that I'll be doing in the Milford area tomorrow. And we count all the different birds that we can and all the different species, how many we see of each. And it's a tremendous effort and a lot of fun to do. But you do have to be in the circle and you have to do it during the date it takes place. The Backyard Winter Bird Survey that takes place in February, you can do it anywhere in the state. You can watch it anytime on the 13th or the 14th for as long or as little as you want. You record how many of each species you see and send those results into New Hampshire Audubon. So you can do it whether in a circle, a count circle or not. There's no count circles for the Backyard Winter Bird Survey. So I hope you all will take part in that. You can get information online, or if you'd like to get a packet, you can email or call us with your mailing address. You can call New Hampshire Audubon at 603-224-9909. Just say you'd like a packet for the Backyard Winter Bird Survey and leave your address. I see I've got a couple of questions, so I'm going to look at my phone and we'll see if we can answer a couple of those. Wendy's talking about a hawk that picked off a mourning dove on the hanging feeder during the last storm, wondering if it could be a goshawk. Goshawks are rare. They do occasionally come to feeders, but our most common hawks at feeders are Cooper's hawk or sharp-shinned hawk. They have long tails. The Coopers, the Sharpshinned, and the Goshawk are all in the accipiter family. And so they all have long tails. The amateurs all look the same. Brown on the back, white on the breast with brown streaks. The goshawk has a white stripe over the eye as an immature. The adult Sharpshin and Coopers have reddish breasts and gray on the back. They're very hard to tell apart. Those two species are particularly difficult to differentiate. And either one of them could go for a mourning dove. Goshawks, when they're adult, have whitish breasts and really gray on the back. They still have that white stripe over the eye, but they are much, much less common. So take a look at Sharpshin and Cooper's hawks and see if that might be what you saw. I have hanging around in my yard both an immature Cooper's hawk and an adult Cooper's hawk. And the birds will freeze when one of those hawks is around. And they oftentimes come stealthily flying low through the yard. And the Cooper's in general is a little bit bigger than the Sharpshin, but the females of both species are larger than the males. So a female Sharpshin could be about the same size as a male Cooper's hawk. So it's a tough ID to try and do, but if you can get a picture, you can send it along and we can try and take a look at it. All right. And Jen talks about the hawks in the neighborhood are so large this year. Outskirts of Manchester near Precious Blood. So the common large hawk that we see, particularly along highways, is the red-tailed hawk. And the tough thing about red-tailed hawks is that the young birds don't have a red tail. So if you see a hawk with a red tail, it's definitely a red-tailed hawk. If it doesn't have a red tail, it doesn't mean it's not a red-tailed hawk. It still could be. But one of the things that you can see with red-tailed hawks, they're big and bulky. They have a pretty good size, sort of puffy chest. It's often a light colored chest with a dark, what we call belly band, brown streaks across the belly. And there's usually light above and light below. The amount of streaks can vary, but usually if you're driving by on the highway, you look out and you see a large hawk in a tree, you can usually see the whitish belly and the belly band as you zip by, and that's your red-tailed hawk. They also feed primarily on small rodents. Unlike Sharpshin and Coopers, which feed primarily on birds, small birds, the red-tails feed primarily on mice, voles, sometimes gray squirrels if they can catch them. And the red tails are more likely to be along the edges of highways, less likely to be in yards, but certainly could be, especially if you're near an area where there's some edges, either highway edges, field edges. They like to be sort of on the edge of woods and more open habitat. All right, let me see. I see another question. Will there be guidance posted for how to participate in the backyard winter bird survey? So you can go online right now. You just Google backyard winter bird survey, New Hampshire Audubon, and you should get a link to the information about the survey. I'll try and, in fact, I will check for at Facebook. As we get a little closer to the survey, we'll definitely post some more active links to Facebook, but I'm going to make a note to do that right after this. Links to the BWBS. We'll post that. Okay. And when we get a little closer, I'll talk about sort of some of the instructions for doing it. But again, if you do want to get a packet, you can email us, you can call us and just ask. The packets, we just got the materials back from the printer. It includes the results from last year, and we'll be stuffing them. Thanks to some loyal volunteers who are helping out, they're going to be stuffing those packets, and we'll be getting that out within a couple of weeks. So if you've done the survey before, you'll get that packet towards the end of January. And if you sign up for it and you're new and you get us your address, we'll get you one of those packets as soon as we can. All right, let's see if I've addressed all the other brown, not gray. So Wendy is definitely brown, not gray. Sounds like it was either an immature of the accipiters, so immature Sharpie or Cooper's most likely, or a red-tailed hawk. But if it went through your yard after a mourning dove like that at the feeder, it was not a red-tailed hawk. That would not be their hunting behavior. They might go for a mourning dove that was sitting on the ground, but not where they have to swoop in and maneuver around a feeder. Red-tailed hawks are beautios and they're not particularly maneuverable. So they tend more to sit and drop down onto something. The sharp-shinned and Cooper's hawk and goshawk are very maneuverable, and that helps them to catch the small birds that are their prey. All right, Jess, hi. Thanks for the hello. Happy New Year to you. Happy New Year to everybody who's watching. Um, All right, there were a couple of other things I wanted to mention. Highlight for you on Facebook, the feature plant this week is wintergreen. And I encourage you when you're out walking, particularly right now when the snow cover has melted, to walk and look for it. With the drought, there were not a lot of wintergreen berries this year, but they're tasty. They're not sweet, but they have that wintergreen flavor. Um, they're little red berries. You can look at the picture, but particularly note the difference between wintergreen and partridge berry because they both have small leaves. They're both ground covers, and they both have red berries. And the partridge berries don't taste like much, but the wintergreen berries are kind of good. The interesting thing about the wintergreen plant is it actually has a compound that's similar to aspirin and has been used by native healers for some of the same things that aspirin would be normally used for by us in the current day. So very interesting plant. If you have a shady area on the ground that you want to try and have something other than grass growing, that can be a great plant to put down because they hold their berries a while, so other creatures will feed on them into the winter time and actually late winter, even early spring. Early spring, the berries swell up a little bit. Um, and they're not as hard and well, they're not crunchy exactly, but they're a little chewy. And when they swell up in the spring with a little moisture, they're not quite as chewy. So take a look at the feature plant. The winter is a great time to be planning your garden. So it's a good time to take a look at some of the plants that we'll be featuring that are good for wildlife. And you can think about what you might want to add to your yard to help wildlife, not only for your sake, but for wildlife's sake as well. I'm always looking for things that will bring birds into my yard um, and and help them to be successful at reproduction. So I encourage you to look at our feature plants. We'll have one each week coming up. Uh, so I think I'm about wrapping up here. Has anybody got any other questions or observations? Let me just scroll and make sure I didn't miss anybody's questions. Um, I always appreciate when people are reminding me that they've got a question there. These hawk, Carolina bird survey. All right, great. Well, I thank you all for joining me. It's Becky with New Hampshire Audubon. I wish you a very happy new year. This is a great time to begin a birding year list. So I encourage you to do that. I'll talk a little bit more about that next time. It won't be too late, but start writing down the different species that you've seen. You can keep track of what you've seen in your yard, which I'm going to do for the year this year. Or you can keep track of the bird species you see everywhere in the state. I'm also doing that. I find it a fun way to to be paying attention to what's going on outside and in the world. And birds always bring me joy. So I wish you joy in the new year. As always, we really appreciate your support. New Hampshire Audubon is funded by donations from folks like you. So don't hesitate to go to our website um, and show your support. Thank you so much, and we will see you again. Happy New Year.